I'm behind you. I am right behind you.
In the quiet town of Ravenswood, there stood an old mansion on Willow Lane. It was a grand, sprawling estate that had seen better days. The locals whispered about the house, claiming it was cursed. Few dared to venture near it, especially after sundown. At the center of these rumors was a large, ornate mirror hidden away in the drawing room, draped with a heavy, crimson cloth. Little Emma lived in the old mansion with her parents and her elderly grandmother, who often recounted chilling tales of the house's eerie past. Despite the unsettling stories, Emma had always felt a strange affection for the sprawling, albeit decaying, estate. Her nights were usually peaceful, the quiet punctuated only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the rustling of leaves outside her window. One night, at precisely 2:30 a.m., Emma awoke with a parched throat. The stillness of the hour wrapped around her like a blanket as she quietly slipped out of her bed, her small feet padding softly on the creaky wooden floors. The mansion was enveloped in silence, save for the sporadic groans of its ancient beams, which seemed to echo the house's ghostly memories. She tiptoed down the dimly lit hallway, heading towards the kitchen for a glass of water. The flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, enhancing the mansion's already haunting atmosphere. As Emma passed the drawing room, she noticed a chill in the air, colder than the rest of the house. Just then, she heard it, a soft, eerie whisper, almost indistinguishable from the creaks and groans of the old house. She paused, her heart beating faster, and strained to listen. The whispering grew slightly louder, like the faint murmur of a distant conversation, though the words were indistinguishable. Curiosity mingled with fear as she edged closer to the drawing room door, which stood ajar. Through the narrow opening, Emma could see the outline of the large, draped mirror, its crimson cloth appearing almost black in the faint light. The whisper seemed to emanate from the direction of the mirror, sending shivers down her spine. She hesitated, remembering her grandmother's warnings about the mirror's dark power. Yet, something inexplicable compelled her to take a step closer, her small hand reaching out towards the heavy cloth. The air grew heavier, charged with a palpable sense of anticipation. Emma's fingers brushed the edge of the cloth, and for a fleeting moment, the whisper turned into a clear, chilling voice that seemed to speak directly to her. She gasped and stumbled back, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. In the ensuing silence, she gathered her courage and bolted to the kitchen, her heart pounding in her chest. She quickly filled a glass of water, her mind racing with thoughts of the mysterious whisper and the hidden secrets of the mansion. As she sipped the cool water, Emma resolved never to tell anyone about what she had heard, fearing that they might think her imagination had run wild. But deep down, she knew the mansion held more than just memories of the past. It harbored secrets that were alive and waiting, secrets that had chosen her to uncover them. "Emma, come closer." Emma froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The whisper was unmistakable, sending icy chills down her spine. She turned towards the drawing room, the door slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning her. The whispering grew more insistent, weaving through the air like a spell. "Emma, please, come closer." She hesitated, fear clawing at her insides, her grandmother's cautionary tales echoing in her mind. Yet, curiosity, potent and irresistible, urged her forward. She took a deep breath, steeling herself, and pushed the door open, stepping into the room. The air inside was colder, thick with an eerie stillness. The crimson cloth covering the mirror seemed to flutter, as if stirred by an unseen breeze, a silent invitation. Emma's eyes were wide with fright, but she couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. She approached the mirror, the ancient, ornate frame looming over her like a silent guardian. Her small hand trembled as she reached out, fingers brushing against the heavy fabric. With a swift motion, she pulled the cloth away, revealing the gleaming surface beneath. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. The mirror's surface was pristine, almost hypnotic in its brilliance, reflecting the dim candlelight with an otherworldly glow. Emma stared into it, expecting to see her own reflection staring back. Instead, she saw shadows shifting, forming vague shapes and figures that seemed to move independently of the dim light. Her breath caught as a figure materialized in the glass, a woman, dressed in old-fashioned attire, her eyes hollow and mournful. The woman's lips moved, forming words that Emma could now hear clearly. "Emma, I've been waiting for you." The voice was soft, almost tender, yet laced with an ancient sorrow. Emma wanted to run, to scream, but she felt rooted to the spot, unable to tear her gaze away. The woman in the mirror reached out a ghostly hand, her fingers brushing against the surface from the other side. "Help me, Emma, free me." The plea resonated deep within Emma, stirring a mix of empathy and dread. She glanced around, half expecting her parents or grandmother to appear and rescue her from this spectral encounter. But the house remained silent, the old beams groaning as if in response to the unfolding drama. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emma whispered back, "How can I help you?" The woman in the mirror smiled, a sad, grateful smile that made Emma's heart ache. "Find the locket," she said. "It holds the key to my freedom." Before Emma could ask more, the image began to fade, the mirror's surface rippling like water. She was left staring at her own wide-eyed reflection, the whispering silenced, the room now eerily quiet. Clutching the crimson cloth in her hand, Emma knew her life had changed. The mansion on Willow Lane had revealed its secret to her, and there was no turning back. She was now bound to the mystery of the mirror, and the task of uncovering the truth behind the woman's haunting plea rested on her young shoulders. To her horror, the mirror did not reflect her alone. Standing beside her in the reflection was a woman she recognized from old family photographs, her twin grandmother, a figure she had never met in life. The ghostly apparition's eyes were dark and hollow, her mouth twisted into a sinister smile that sent a jolt of terror through Emma's veins. "Blood, we need your blood." The ghostly voice echoed from within the mirror, each word dripping with malice. Emma stumbled back, her heart racing, the glass slipping from her grasp and shattering on the floor. The mirror seemed to pulse with a dark, malevolent energy, the reflections growing more twisted and grotesque by the second. Her grandmother's specter leaned closer, her expression both pleading and menacing. "Blood, we need your blood." The ghost repeated, the words reverberating in Emma's mind, each repetition more desperate and demanding than the last. Terrified, Emma turned and fled, her feet barely touching the ground as she bolted from the drawing room. The house seemed to close in around her, the shadows lengthening and the air growing colder. She could still hear the ghost's voice echoing in her ears, a chilling reminder of the sinister encounter. Emma raced down the hall, her small feet pounding on the wooden floors, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She burst into her room and slammed the door behind her, pressing her back against it as if to barricade herself from the horrors she had witnessed. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by her own frantic breathing and the faint creaks of the old house. Trembling, Emma crawled into bed and pulled the covers over her head, seeking refuge from the darkness that seemed to have come alive. Her mind raced with questions and fears. What had she unleashed? What did the ghostly demand for blood mean? And why had her twin grandmother appeared with such a sinister presence? Despite her fear, exhaustion eventually overcame her, and she drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by visions of the mirror and the malevolent spirit it held. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of her journey into the mansion's dark history, a journey that would test her courage and uncover secrets long buried in the shadows of Willow Lane. The next day, Emma, still shaken from the previous night's encounter, mustered the courage to tell her parents about the ghost in the mirror. She described the sinister figure of her twin grandmother and the chilling demand for blood, her voice trembling with fear. Her parents, however, dismissed it as a bad dream, comforting her with reassuring words and gentle hugs. They attributed her vivid imagination to the old stories her grandmother often shared. But as the days passed, strange occurrences began to plague the mansion. Doors would slam shut with a force that rattled the windows even when there was no breeze. The temperature would drop suddenly, chilling the air and causing their breaths to fog. Shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, creeping along the walls and flickering in the corners of their vision. The once quiet mansion had turned into a place of unrelenting unease. Emma's parents, initially skeptical, began to worry as the disturbances grew more frequent and intense. Her mother often found herself shivering uncontrollably, while her father would hear faint whispers in empty rooms. The family could no longer ignore the oppressive atmosphere that had settled over their home. Desperate for answers and relief, they sought the help of priests and paranormal experts. The local priest visited, blessing each room with holy water and reciting prayers to banish any malevolent spirits. For a brief moment, the house seemed to calm, the eerie occurrences pausing as if in retreat. But it wasn't long before the disturbances returned, more aggressive than before. Paranormal experts arrived with their equipment, setting up cameras, motion detectors, and audio recorders. They roamed the halls, asking questions into the empty air, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. The mansion responded with bursts of static, inexplicable cold spots, and orbs of light that danced across the monitors. Yet, despite their efforts, the experts could offer no solution, only confirming what Emma already knew, that something dark and powerful lurked within their home. Emma's parents grew increasingly frantic, their nights sleepless and their days filled with dread. They pored over old family records, searching for any clue that might explain the haunting. Emma's grandmother, though frail and often forgetful, became a source of knowledge, recounting stories of the mansion's past inhabitants and the mysterious mirror. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, the temperature plummeted and a heavy silence fell over them. The mirror in the drawing room, still uncovered from Emma's encounter, seemed to call out, a faint whispering that echoed through the halls. Emma's parents exchanged worried glances, realizing that the time had come to face the mirror and the secrets it held. Determined to protect his family, Emma's father led them to the drawing room. The mirror's surface gleamed ominously, reflecting their anxious faces. As they stood before it, Emma felt a familiar chill and heard the ghostly voice once more. "Blood, we need your blood." With a sense of foreboding, the family understood that the mirror demanded a deeper sacrifice, one that tied them to the mansion's dark history. As the truth began to unravel, they realized their only hope lay in uncovering the mirror's origin and the bloodline curse that bound their fate to the haunted estate on Willow Lane. As days turned into weeks, the haunting grew worse. Emma's parents began to experience vivid nightmares, waking up drenched in sweat, their bodies marked with unexplained scratches and bruises. Objects in the house moved on their own, sometimes levitating before crashing to the ground. At night, the whispering returned, louder and more insistent, filling every corner of the mansion with its chilling demand. "Blood, we need your blood." Emma, racked with guilt for not giving the ghost what it wanted, felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her small shoulders. Her family was suffering, and the sinister presence in their home was growing more aggressive. She knew she had to do something, even if it terrified her. One fateful night, she made up her mind to confront the mirror once more. Steeling herself, Emma sneaked out of her room, her heart pounding in her chest. She carried a small knife, its blade gleaming faintly in the dim light. The house seemed to hold its breath as she crept through the hallways, the floorboards creaking under her weight. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional distant whisper. Emma entered the drawing room, the mirror looming before her like a dark sentinel. The crimson cloth lay discarded on the floor, revealing the mirror's gleaming surface. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes wide with fear. Taking a deep breath, she approached the mirror, the ghostly whispers growing louder. "Blood, we need your blood." Her hands trembled as she held the knife, the blade cold against her skin. She made a small cut on her finger, wincing as the pain shot through her. A single drop of blood welled up, dark and glistening. With a mixture of dread and determination, she pressed her finger against the glass, smearing the blood across its surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the mirror seemed to shiver, its surface rippling like disturbed water. The reflections twisted and morphed, shadows dancing wildly. The ghostly figure of her twin grandmother appeared once more, her dark eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. "Thank you, Emma," the ghostly voice whispered, now filled with an eerie satisfaction. "Your sacrifice is accepted." The room grew colder, the temperature plummeting until Emma could see her breath. The mirror pulsed with a dark energy, the shadows within it swirling violently. Emma stepped back, her heart racing, unsure of what she had unleashed. Suddenly, the ghostly figure in the mirror began to fade, its sinister smile lingering for a moment before disappearing entirely. The mirror's surface returned to its pristine state, reflecting only Emma's pale, frightened face. Emma stood there, her fingers still bleeding, waiting for something to happen. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly, the heavy silence giving way to the familiar creaks and groans of the old house. She didn't know if she had appeased the ghost or merely postponed another inevitable encounter, but for the first time in weeks, the whispering had stopped. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Emma returned to her room, bandaging her finger and crawling into bed. The house seemed quieter, almost peaceful, as she drifted into a fitful sleep. Yet, deep down, she knew that the mansion's dark secrets were far from being fully uncovered. The mirror's demands had been met, but the shadows of Willow Lane still held many mysteries, and Emma's journey into the heart of the haunting had only just begun. The mirror absorbed the blood, and for a moment, the house fell silent. Emma dared to hope that the nightmare was over, that her sacrifice had appeased the restless spirit. However, the peace was short-lived. The very next night, the whispering returned, louder and more demanding than before. "Blood, we need more blood." The voice echoed through the halls, its urgency growing with each passing hour. Emma realized with a sinking heart that the ghost's thirst for blood was insatiable. The hauntings escalated, becoming more violent and terrifying. Objects flew across rooms, shattering against walls. Doors slammed shut with enough force to crack the wood. The temperature in the house plummeted, and the shadows grew darker and more menacing. The family's health began to deteriorate rapidly. Emma's parents, once vibrant and full of life, became pale and gaunt. They were plagued by constant nightmares, waking up each morning with new scratches and bruises. Her grandmother, already frail, seemed to weaken by the day, her eyes reflecting a haunted knowledge that she couldn't fully express. Emma knew she had to find a way to end the curse that bound them to this relentless terror. She began to delve into the mansion's history, searching for any clues that could help her understand the malevolent force they were facing. Late into the night, she pored over old family records, dusty journals, and faded photographs, hoping to uncover the secrets that had been buried for generations. One evening, as she pored over an ancient journal she had found in the attic, a passage caught her eye. It spoke of a bloodline curse, a pact made by an ancestor in exchange for power and wealth. The mirror, a conduit for the dark forces, demanded blood from the descendants to sustain the curse. The only way to break it, the journal hinted, was to find and destroy the locket that held the essence of the curse. With renewed determination, Emma set out to find the locket. She searched every nook and cranny of the mansion, her fear overshadowed by her resolve to save her family. Days turned into nights as she tirelessly hunted for the key to their salvation. One stormy night, as thunder roared and lightning illuminated the shadowed corridors, Emma found herself drawn to the basement, a place she had always avoided. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding as she descended the creaking stairs. In the dim light, she saw an old chest, half buried under a pile of forgotten relics. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a collection of antiquities. Among them lay an ornate locket, its surface etched with the same symbols that adorned the mirror. Emma's heart raced as she picked it up, feeling a surge of dark energy pulsing from within. She knew without a doubt that this was the source of the curse. With the locket in hand, Emma raced back to the drawing room. She stood before the mirror, the ghostly figure of her twin grandmother appearing once more, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. "End this," Emma whispered, holding the locket up. "Release us." In a swift motion, she threw the locket against the mirror. The glass shattered with a deafening crash, shards flying in all directions. A piercing scream filled the room as the mirror's dark energy was released, swirling into a violent vortex before dissipating into nothingness. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if a heavy veil had been removed. The temperature warmed, and the shadows receded, returning to their natural state. Emma stood amidst the broken glass, her breathing heavy, her heart pounding with relief. Over the next few days, the hauntings ceased entirely. The mansion, once a place of fear and darkness, seemed to come alive with light and warmth. Emma's parents and grandmother began to recover, their health improving with each passing day. The mirror and its sinister demands were gone, the curse broken at last. Emma knew that their lives would never be the same, but they were finally free from the malevolent force that had haunted them. The mansion on Willow Lane held many secrets, but Emma had unraveled its darkest mystery, ensuring that the shadows would never again claim their family. Emma's grandmother, who had always seemed to know more than she let on, finally revealed the truth. As the family sat together in the now peaceful drawing room, she recounted the dark history of the mirror, her voice heavy with the weight of long-held secrets. "The mirror," she began, her eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight, "is a portal to the spirit world. The ghost you saw, Emma, is a malevolent entity that has taken the form of my twin sister. She was consumed by the dark forces we unwittingly unleashed. The curse has bound her spirit to this mirror, feeding off our bloodline's energy." Emma listened intently, piecing together the fragments of the story she had uncovered. Her grandmother continued, her voice trembling slightly. "The only way to break the curse is to destroy the mirror. But doing so will release the ghost into the world. It's a risk, but it's the only way to end this nightmare once and for all." Emma's parents looked at each other, fear and determination etched on their faces. They knew the dangers, but they also knew they couldn't continue living under the shadow of the malevolent entity. Emma, feeling the burden of her family's legacy, knew what had to be done. The next night, with the locket in hand, Emma stood before the mirror once more. Her grandmother, parents, and the priests and paranormal experts they had consulted all stood behind her, lending their strength and support. The air was thick with anticipation, the house eerily silent as if it too was holding its breath. Emma held up the locket, meeting the gaze of the ghostly figure within the mirror. The entity's eyes were filled with a dark, twisted hatred, but there was also a flicker of fear. Emma knew that it was now or never. "In the name of our family and the lives you've tormented, I release us from this curse," Emma declared, her voice steady and resolute. She threw the locket against the mirror with all her might. The mirror shattered with a deafening crash, shards flying in all directions. A piercing scream filled the room as the ghostly figure was expelled from the glass, swirling into a violent vortex. The dark energy coalesced into a shadowy form, writhing and twisting before dissipating into nothingness. For a moment, the room was still, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if a heavy veil had been removed. The temperature warmed, and the shadows receded, returning to their natural state. Emma stood amidst the broken glass, her breathing heavy, her heart pounding with relief and triumph. The house fell silent, the malevolent presence gone. The mansion, once a place of fear and darkness, seemed to come alive with light and warmth. Emma's parents and grandmother began to recover, their health improving with each passing day. The mirror and its sinister demands were gone, the curse broken at last. Emma's grandmother approached her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did it, Emma. You freed us all," she said, her voice filled with pride and gratitude. Emma knew that their lives would never be the same, but they were finally free from the malevolent force that had haunted them. The mansion on Willow Lane held many secrets, but Emma had unraveled its darkest mystery, ensuring that the shadows would never again claim their family. As they rebuilt their lives, they did so with the knowledge that they had faced and conquered the darkness together, their bond stronger than any curse. Desperate to save her family, Emma made the fateful decision to destroy the mirror. Her grandmother's revelation weighed heavily on her mind, but the increasing violence and deteriorating health of her family left her with no other choice. She waited until the dead of night, when the whispering was at its peak, filling the house with an unbearable tension. Armed with a heavy candlestick, Emma stood before the mirror, her reflection trembling with fear and determination. The ghostly figure of her twin grandmother appeared once more, her eyes blazing with malevolence. "Blood, we need your blood," the ghost whispered, its voice now a sinister hiss. Summoning all her courage, Emma raised the candlestick high and brought it down with all her strength. The mirror shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards flying in all directions. The air was filled with a piercing shriek as the ghost, freed from its prison, swirled into a violent vortex of shadow and rage. Emma's family, awakened by the commotion, rushed to her aid. They found her standing amidst the broken glass, the malevolent energy dissipating around her. Her parents and grandmother reached out, but it was too late. The ghost, no longer confined to the mirror, had escaped into the world. The house fell eerily silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the dark energy dissipated. The shattered mirror lay in ruins, its power finally broken. Emma's parents and grandmother embraced her, relief and fear mingling in their eyes. They knew the immediate danger had passed, but the release of the ghost into the world was an ominous new threat. Over the next few days, the mansion on Willow Lane began to change. The hauntings ceased entirely, and the once darkened rooms were filled with light and warmth. Emma's family started to recover, their health improving as the oppressive curse lifted. Yet, the knowledge that the ghost was now free weighed heavily on their minds. Emma, her resolve hardened by the ordeal, knew that their fight wasn't over. She delved deeper into her family's history, determined to track down and finally vanquish the malevolent spirit. With her family's support and the guidance of her grandmother's knowledge, she embarked on a new journey, one that would take her beyond the confines of their haunted home. Together, they prepared for the challenges ahead, knowing that the shadows of their past still lingered, but confident in their strength and unity. The mansion on Willow Lane had revealed its darkest secret, and while the curse was broken, the legacy of courage and resilience it forged would guide them through whatever darkness lay ahead. With the mirror destroyed, the haunting ceased within the walls of the mansion, but the ghost was now free. The malevolent presence, no longer bound to the mirror, had escaped into the world. Desperate for a fresh start and hoping to leave the horrors behind, Emma and her family moved away from the old mansion on Willow Lane. They found a new home in a different town, a place filled with sunlight and warmth. Yet, despite the change of scenery, the ghost's presence lingered, an ominous shadow that followed them wherever they went. Emma felt it in the cold drafts that swept through their new house, in the flickering lights, and in the unsettling whispers that returned at night. Emma knew that the battle was far from over. The ghost's thirst for blood was insatiable, and its freedom posed a new threat. She couldn't escape the feeling that the entity was watching, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Her family, though trying to move on, couldn't shake the lingering fear that had taken root in their lives. Determined to protect her loved ones and end the terror once and for all, Emma delved deeper into her family's dark history. She sought out old texts, consulted with experts in the paranormal, and pieced together the fragmented lore surrounding the curse. The more she learned, the more she realized that the ghost's power was tied not just to the mirror, but to the very bloodline of her family. One evening, as Emma pored over an ancient manuscript she had obtained from a distant relative, she discovered a crucial piece of information. The ghost, once released, could only be banished by confronting it in the place where it first gained its power. This meant returning to the mansion on Willow Lane, the epicenter of their torment. Gathering her courage, Emma shared her findings with her family. They were reluctant, the fear of returning to the haunted mansion palpable. But they also understood that running would not save them. They had to face the ghost to reclaim their lives. With renewed resolve, they prepared for the journey back to Ravenswood. The night they arrived, the mansion loomed dark and silent, its oppressive aura now even more menacing. Emma led her family inside, each step echoing with memories of past horrors. They made their way to the drawing room where the shattered remains of the mirrors still lay. In the center of the room, Emma set up a circle of protection, a ritual she had painstakingly learned from her research. They held hands, forming a united front against the dark force that had tormented them. As they began the ritual, the temperature dropped, and the familiar whispering filled the air. "Blood, we need your blood." The ghost materialized, its form shifting and grotesque, filled with a malevolent fury. But this time, Emma was prepared. She recited the incantation, her voice steady and strong, commanding the spirit to return to the void from which it came. The room shook, the air thick with energy, as the ghost fought against the binding spell. With a final, desperate shriek, the ghost was drawn into the circle, its dark form dissolving into nothingness. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the last remnants of the curse vanished. Exhausted but triumphant, Emma and her family knew that the ghost was finally gone. They left the mansion for the last time, the dawn breaking as they stepped outside. The battle had been hard fought, but they had emerged victorious. The shadow that had followed them was banished, and they could finally look to the future with hope. Emma knew that their ordeal had forged an unbreakable bond within her family. Together, they had faced the darkness and won. As they drove away from Ravenswood, the mansion on Willow Lane receded into the distance, a relic of the past. Their new life awaited, free from the haunting shadows, filled with the promise of peace and light. Years passed, and Emma grew up with the constant reminder of the ghost's curse. The experience had left an indelible mark on her, shaping her into a determined and resilient young woman. From that fateful night onward, she dedicated her life to studying the paranormal, driven by a fierce determination to find a way to banish the ghost once and for all. Her journey took her to the darkest corners of the world, where she delved into forbidden texts, consulted with wise shamans, and faced countless dangers. She sought out ancient relics and powerful artifacts, each step bringing her closer to unlocking the secrets of the spirit world. Emma's quest led her to remote temples hidden deep within dense jungles, where she learned ancient rituals from wise elders. She traveled to desolate landscapes, where she faced malevolent entities and unearthed forgotten truths. She even ventured into the depths of haunted ruins, where she confronted the very essence of fear itself. Through it all, Emma never wavered in her determination. She knew that the ghost's curse was not just a personal burden, but a threat to the world itself. She refused to let fear hold her back, pushing herself beyond her limits in her quest for knowledge and power. Her research eventually brought her back to the mansion on Willow Lane, the place where it all began. Armed with newfound wisdom and ancient relics, she faced the ghost once more, ready to confront the darkness that had haunted her for so long. As Emma stood before the shattered remains of the mirror, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had come full circle, ready to end the curse once and for all. With a steady hand and a heart filled with determination, she began the ritual to banish the ghost from this world forever. The air crackled with energy as Emma chanted the ancient incantation, her voice echoing through the empty halls of the mansion. The ghost appeared, its form twisted and grotesque, but Emma stood firm, her resolve unshakable. With a final burst of light, the ghost was drawn into the void, its malevolent presence vanishing into the ether. The mansion fell silent, the curse broken at last. As Emma emerged from the mansion, the first rays of dawn breaking on the horizon, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The weight of the curse had been lifted, and she could finally move forward with her life. Years later, Emma became known as a renowned expert in the paranormal, her name spoken in hushed tones by those who sought her wisdom and guidance. But for Emma, the true reward lay in knowing that she had conquered her fears and brought an end to the darkness that had once haunted her family. As she looked back on her journey, she knew that the lessons she had learned and the challenges she had overcome had shaped her into the person she was meant to be. With the ghost's curse finally lifted, Emma could embrace the future with hope and optimism, knowing that she was free to live her life without fear. One stormy night, Emma found herself back at the old mansion on Willow Lane. Armed with newfound knowledge and powerful artifacts gathered from her years of research and exploration, she prepared for the final confrontation. The winds howled outside, the rain lashed against the windows, and the very air seemed to thrum with an electric energy. The house was as eerie as ever, its once grand halls now cloaked in darkness and decay. Emma's footsteps echoed through the empty corridors as she made her way to the drawing room, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that seemed to hang in the air like a heavy fog. Emma entered the drawing room, now a shadow of its former self. The once gleaming mirror lay shattered on the floor, its fragments reflecting the faint glow of candlelight. Emma stood before the broken mirror, the remnants of the curse that had plagued her family for so long. With a deep breath, Emma summoned all her courage and resolve, channeling the power of the artifacts she had collected on her journey. She spoke the ancient incantations, her voice ringing out with a commanding authority that echoed through the empty room. As she called forth the ghost for one last battle, the atmosphere seemed to shift, the very fabric of reality bending to her will. The air crackled with energy, and a sense of anticipation filled the room as Emma braced herself for the final showdown. With a sudden surge of dark energy, the ghost materialized before her, its form twisted and contorted with rage. But Emma stood firm, her eyes ablaze with determination as she faced the malevolent entity that had haunted her family for generations. With a defiant roar, Emma unleashed the full force of her power, sending waves of light cascading towards the ghost. The mansion shook with the intensity of their battle, the very walls groaning under the strain of their clash. As the final blow struck true, the ghost let out a piercing shriek before dissipating into nothingness, its dark energy vanquished once and for all. The mansion fell silent, the oppressive weight of the curse lifted from its ancient halls. Emma emerged from the drawing room, her body weary but her spirit triumphant. The storm outside had passed, and a faint glimmer of dawn illuminated the horizon. As she stepped out into the cool night air, a sense of peace washed over her, knowing that she had finally brought an end to the darkness that had plagued her family for so long. With her quest fulfilled and the curse broken, Emma could finally embrace the future with hope and optimism. As she walked away from the old mansion on Willow Lane, she knew that her journey was far from over, but she faced the road ahead with courage and conviction, ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. With chants and rituals learned from her travels, Emma fought the ghost with all her might. The spirit shrieked and writhed, its twisted form contorting in agony as Emma's power surged against it. But Emma's determination was unwavering. She called upon ancient powers, invoking the spirits of her ancestors to aid her in the battle against the malevolent entity that had plagued her family for generations. The air crackled with energy as Emma channeled the forces of light and darkness, weaving a tapestry of magic that enveloped the room in a radiant glow. With each incantation, each gesture, she pushed back against the darkness, refusing to yield to its relentless onslaught. The battle raged on, the mansion trembling with the force of their clash. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and writhing in the flickering candlelight as Emma and the ghost fought for supremacy. But with every passing moment, Emma's resolve only grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that she was fighting not just for herself, but for her family and the countless others who had fallen victim to the ghost's curse. As the final confrontation reached its climax, Emma unleashed a torrent of power unlike anything she had ever known. With a deafening roar, she banished the ghost back into the depths of the spirit world, its anguished cries echoing into the night as it vanished from existence. With the ghost defeated and the curse lifted, Emma stood amidst the wreckage of the drawing room, her chest heaving with exertion. The air was heavy with the scent of burnt incense, and the remnants of her magic lingered in the air like a fading memory. But despite the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm her, Emma felt a sense of triumph unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had faced her greatest fear and emerged victorious, her courage and determination shining like a beacon in the darkness. As she stepped out into the cool night air, a sense of peace washed over her, knowing that she had finally brought an end to the nightmare that had haunted her family for so long. With the curse broken and the ghost banished, Emma could finally embrace the future with hope and optimism, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With the ghost gone, the old mansion fell silent, its once ominous halls now filled with a sense of calm. Emma and her family finally found peace, free from the hauntings that had plagued them for so long. They moved forward with their lives, their bonds stronger than ever after facing the darkness together. Emma continued her work, drawing upon her experiences to help others who were tormented by the supernatural. She became a renowned paranormal investigator, known far and wide for her bravery and determination. From haunted houses to cursed artifacts, Emma fearlessly delved into the unknown, seeking to bring closure to those who were trapped in the grip of the supernatural. Her reputation grew with each successful case, her name whispered in awe by those who had witnessed her unwavering resolve in the face of unimaginable horrors. But for Emma, it was never about fame or recognition. It was about using her knowledge and skills to make a difference in the lives of others, just as she had done for her own family. As the years passed, Emma's work took her to far-flung corners of the world, where she encountered mysteries beyond imagination and confronted beings that defied description. Yet, through it all, she remained steadfast, her determination unwavering as she continued to fight against the forces of darkness. And though the memories of her family's ordeal would always linger, Emma found solace in the knowledge that they had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever. With each case she solved and each soul she helped, she knew that she was honoring their legacy and fulfilling her destiny as a guardian against the supernatural. As she looked back on her journey, Emma knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges and dangers. But armed with her courage, her knowledge, and the love of her family, she was ready to face whatever darkness awaited, knowing that she would never be alone as long as she had the strength to fight. The old mansion on Willow Lane was eventually abandoned, its once grand facade succumbing to decay and neglect. Nature reclaimed the grounds, and the mansion faded into obscurity, becoming little more than a crumbling relic of the past. But the story of the haunted mirror lived on, a cautionary tale whispered among the townsfolk and passed down through generations. Despite the passage of time, the memory of the mansion's dark history lingered, its legend growing with each retelling. The tale of the cursed mirror and the malevolent ghost became a part of Ravenswood's folklore, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. And though the ghost was gone, its legacy endured. The memory of its malevolent presence served as a sobering reminder of the dark forces that lurk just beyond the veil of reality. It was a reminder to tread carefully, to heed the warnings of the past, and to never underestimate the power of the supernatural. But amidst the tales of darkness and despair, there was also hope. For in the story of Emma and her family, there was a beacon of light that shone brightly against the backdrop of darkness. Their courage, their resilience, and their unwavering determination served as a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. As the years passed and the legend of the haunted mansion continued to be told, Emma's legacy grew alongside it. She became a symbol of hope and inspiration, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light to guide the way. And though the mansion on Willow Lane stood abandoned and forgotten, its story lived on, a testament to the enduring power of courage, love, and the indomitable human spirit.